Welcome to a special edition of How to Vegas, focused solely on the art scene right here in the Valley. I'm Danny Beckstrom. When we launched Las Vegas Art Scene as part of How to Vegas almost 6 months ago, we had two goals in mind: to give local artists a platform to share their work and to showcase art experiences that people can enjoy in the Las Vegas area. Since then, we've seen how one artist brings fantasy into the physical world and how another tinkers its way to experimental archaeology. We've told you where you can find line work so mesmerizing it caught Usher's attention, and a place you can visit not far from the Arts District to come face to face with some of the biggest stars in Las Vegas. In this special, we take a look back at notable highlights that showcase the diversity of art in the Las Vegas Valley. Tetz is the first ever winner of Park West Gallery's Made in Vegas competition. Her work beat out nearly 500 submissions, and after a week of in-person voting and a final say from a panel of judges, she was the favorite.
If you think Las Vegas is a trip, Tetz is offering a chance to go deeper down the rabbit hole.
I am Tetz, and I am an artist in Las Vegas, and you can find my work at Park West Gallery.
The homegrown artist recently won Park West's first ever Made in Vegas art competition, beating out nearly 500 impressive submissions. And true to its name, Kat is a longtime Vegas local inspired by the city where she grew up.
How can it not, with all the neon signs? And I mean, that's the first thing that I remember when my mom drove me into Vegas when I was 4, was the turquoise color of the Caesar's Palace. Was unbelievable. It was night, and I use that color in a lot of my paintings now. Even to this day, it's like one of my favorites.
A common theme in her work? Lewis Carroll's famous fantasy fiction, Alice in Wonderland.
Some say to survive it, you need to be as mad as a hatter.
A lot of my paintings depict a different viewpoint of Alice in Wonderland. I'll have her a lot of times transitioning, like here she's transitioning into the white rabbit, and she's growing the fur, and she has the ears coming down, but she's still Alice.
Her style is broad, and her work uses a wide range of techniques.
I do pop surrealism art, lowbrow art. I kind of like the fantasy, a lot of impressionism as well. So I like to change up a bit when I get bored.
Just look at her submissions for the Made in Vegas competition. Stevie Nicks could almost have been painted by another artist. All three of these, of course, were painted by Kat. One of the paintings continues from the canvas onto the frame itself, something she does quite often.
I like to take the fantasy and bring it out to the reality, which is the frame to me.
When she submitted her work for Made in Vegas, she said it didn't go down like you might assume.
I had a hospital stay a couple of months ago. And, you know, I was like out of it, and I was scrolling through Facebook because there's nothing else to do. And I saw the Made in Vegas art competition, and right then I'm like so delirious, right? But I'm applying for it, okay? And I sent in my 3 pictures, and then when I got accepted and they told me that I was one of the 10 finalists, I couldn't remember what I sent in.
Another thing about Kat, she's largely self-taught.
My dad and my mom got divorced when I was 4, so he very rarely came to see me. But the one memory that I do have is he taught me how, at 4 years old, how to measure out a face and what the dimensions were and how to line it out. And then when he left, I had a hero worship on him, by the way. And then when he left, I just did that over and over and over and over.
Her mom was also an artist.
A doll sculptor, and so she would make porcelain dolls and compete in competitions. She always won.
Kat studied at UNLV and has attended artist workshops around the country, which overlaps with another passion of hers.
I like to travel. That's like my favorite things.
Closer to home, you can find her work at several spots.
An amazing gallery inside the Grand Canal Shops, Art to Art Gallery, let's see, Las Laguna Gallery in Laguna Beach, California.
She also has a piece inside Allegiant Stadium, and of course you can find her work inside Park West at Caesar's Palace. She used to have her own gallery, one that she owned for several years.
I feel like I learned so much from owning a gallery.
But then COVID-19 hit Las Vegas.
I got really lucky because my lease was up exactly when that hit. so I didn't renew.
She says she actually got busier when she increased her online presence after closing the brick and mortar location down.
I kept the name because I love, even my website, I love it, wonderlandgallery.com. Not to plug anything.
The pandemic only emphasizing one of the reasons Kat says art is so important for society.
Art is incredibly historical in a way, and it shows where the current trends are.
Learn more about Kat's work and where to find it at KTNV.com. For How to Vegas, I'm Amy Abdelsayed.
We'll be back with more of this How to Vegas special after the break. I love coming up here at the end of my day. There is nothing as beautiful as a desert sunset. Just look at these colors and check out the view. That's why I know it is so important to have an accurate, reliable forecast so you and your family can get out and make the most of your day too. When it's not too windy, skies are clear, and the air quality is best. I'm tracking it all, and I'll show you what to expect.
Real weather from real people. Danny Beckstrom, part of the 13 First Alert Weather Team, only on 13 Action News. Every morning brings something new your way. The Strip, back open for business. Moms and dads returning to the office. And lots of places you can now be together. Good Morning Las Vegas helps you keep track of it all with in-depth coverage of what you missed overnight. More live reports out of the studio and into your neighborhood. And positive stories that will make you smile. Good Morning Las Vegas, for morning people like you. Weekdays 4:30 to 7.
If you look around, you'll find them.
Stories about people doing extraordinary things right here in our city.
We've persevered because we've counted on each other and we've worked together.
People helping others. Pitching in when someone else is down and needs a hand getting back up.
Getting a stuffed animal that'll make them feel like they're loved by other people.
Inspirational stories that'll make you laugh and smile.
We call these stories Positively Las Vegas.
Only on 13 Action News, and now streaming on your favorite device. 13 Action News' Zora Asbury.
If there's one thing that I know, it's guiding drivers through traffic. Now, I may be new to town, but I'll make sure you have the smoothest route ahead. Count on me every morning. I'm checking roads, keeping an eye on all those trouble spots, showing you the best way to get around quickly and safely. If you're driving to work, school, or just running errands, I've got your back.
Zora Asbury's Problem Solver Traffic on Good Morning Las Vegas, weekdays starting at 4:30.
Welcome back to our How to Vegas special. For more on things to do around the valley, just visit ktnv.com/things to do. Kusandra James is a lover of comic books and a writer of science fiction, but when she takes to the canvas, she has a whole different story to tell. James is a portrait artist who uses objects and metaphors to explore Black experiences and cultural expressions in her work.
Kusandra James is a storyteller.
I love graphic novels and comic books. I'm a DC fan.
Although she is a writer,
I write science fiction, so even though I'm not a scientist, so I have to do a lot of research for that, but it's also philosophical.
Some of the most important stories she has to tell do not involve writing at all.
I am a portrait painter.
Kusandra is an award-winning artist who uses her paintings to start conversations.
I want people to realize that there is no monolithic way to be Black, that there is a multitude of ways to express that type of culture, and that also it's not weird for a Black artist to paint Black people, because I get that question a lot.
She grew up in Las Vegas and earned a BFA in English and Fine Arts from UNLV. It's in college where she was introduced to W.E.B. Du Bois.
I took a Black literature class, and I discovered his essay, The Soul of Black Folks.
In his essay, the sociologist, historian, and civil rights activist writes about the veil.
W.B. Du Bois describes the veil as being a piece of cloth that every African American is born with, and it distorts the image of themselves when looking in the mirror and their image for onlookers.
It's a concept Kusandra explores in her paintings. Oftentimes, you'll see a prominent veil in the background. She says she grants her subjects clarity, pulling back the fabric from their eyes.
What he's saying is that the Black individual is gifted with sight and double consciousness and can see what other people can't.
She also likes to paint her subjects holding objects. Take this painting of her niece, Skylar.
She's holding a Sailor Moon rod.
In the manga series, when Usagi, or Sailor Moon, discovers the wand, she becomes empowered.
She discovers that she's a princess.
For kids in school, Kusandra points out African American history starts with slavery.
And it makes people believe that there was nothing that came before that. And so it's the idea of being a Black student and you having to go on and do your own discovery and finding out that we have royalty, we have doctors, we have scientists, we have artists.
It wasn't until 2018 that theaters across the country screened a film with the first mainstream Black superhero.
A lot of times that dark skin is associated with inherently evil or bad, and that you can't typically be a superhero.
In one of her portraits, Kusandra painted her second cousin holding a Black Panther comic book.
Of course, people are very excited to see a superhero on the silver screen. We had Blade, but we never had like a cookie cutter superhero before.
If her work looks familiar, it might be because she was one of the top 3 finalists in Park West's Made in Vegas competition. While she didn't take the top spot, she really didn't lose either. The gallery was so impressed with her work, they offered her a contract anyway. Her third submission for that contest was of another second cousin, holding a purple rabbit missing a foot.
I was playing on the concept of exploitation of the Black body in comparison to the rabbit, where it's supposed to be lucky for its foot, but it's like a contradiction, because like how lucky can you be without your foot?
Specifically, she points to professional sports.
When it comes to athleticism and Black people being exploited for their physique and not being valued for their opinion like basketball players.
Kusandra's work has a lot to say, and while the young artist has clearly found a voice on the canvas, she's helping others find their voices too as a teacher. She's worked with middle school and high school kids, but most recently, she taught an art class for active adults.
And she's a wonderful teacher. You didn't even realize these colors would be beautiful together, and shapes that you didn't even pay attention to, some of them that you see every day, that you're walking down the street and you never pay attention to them. She brought all that to our attention.
Kusandra says the learning goes both ways.
I feel like I learn a lot more from them because there's the whole aspect of wisdom and there's the exchange. Whenever you're teaching, there's always an exchange of information, but I feel like I'm learning a lot more about the history of Las Vegas through them.
You can find her work at the Barrick Museum on UNLV's campus and at a billboard on Highland Drive near the I-15 in Desert Inn Road, after winning another art competition from Meow Wolf and Save Art Space. Her work has also been featured in Las Vegas and Henderson City Halls. As always, you can learn more on KTNV.com. For How to Vegas, I'm Amy Abdelsayed.
We'll be back with more of this How to Vegas special after the break. Welcome back to our How to Vegas special. For more on things to do around the Valley, just visit ktnv.com/things to do. Neil Portnoy is a man on a mission to document Las Vegas entertainment history. His illustrations of local celebrities are instantly recognizable, which is all the more impressive considering his top tool of choice.
You put a brush in my hand and I'm basically useless. I don't have the feel for it.
Don't be fooled by his lack of brush strokes.
My name is Neil Portnoy. I'm an illustrator, owner, artist here at Portnoy Gallery, Las Vegas.
Neil is a respected artist with work on display inside Allegiant Stadium and a gallery and studio not far from the Strat. Inside his studio, you'll find about 3,000 felt tip markers.
I use all the markers.
He works closely with his wife, Dorothy, who's the gallery administrator. She told me he typically uses chart pack markers, which are made for art. But then, in the case of Bob Marley,
this one he decided to do solely with the Sharpies.
Everyday Sharpies! Neil's a self-taught illustrator and caricature artist who moved to Las Vegas about 5 years ago with a dream.
And that dream was to become the illustrator to the stars.
Throughout his almost 50-year career as an artist, it's hard to argue that he hasn't realized that dream, at least to some extent.
I've illustrated everybody from Frank Sinatra back in 1974, to Jack Nicklaus, to Ted Williams, to Jay Leno.
Shortly after moving to Vegas, the Portnoy Wall of Honor was born.
When we first moved here, he's like, oh, I want to meet so-and-so, so let me do a caricature of him. And that's how we started doing it.
On the wall, you'll find celebrities like Carrot Top, Penn and Teller, The Goodmans, even 13 Action News anchor Trisha Keene.
That is Mona.
Okay. As in Mystic Mona, the Vegas psychic with her own radio show and who's appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live.
I guess I don't need the bullhorn for this. Yes. This is Mystic Mona right here.
Mona stood up at a meeting one day and said, You haven't arrived if you haven't been Portnoyed.
From there, they decided to create the Wall of Honor for all of those who have been, quote, Portnoyed.
We started putting the pictures up and we decided we were going to have an induction ceremony.
This month, they held their 4th ever induction at the gallery.
We had about 140 people here.
Everyone there to celebrate the 2021 class of the Portnoy Wall of Honor. But the ceremony also happened to be a very special day for Neil.
I still get emotional when I say this. October 7th, 2021 was proclaimed by Mayor Carolyn Goodman as Portnoy Gallery Day in Las Vegas forever.
Mayor Goodman was at the event and presented him the honor in person, calling his artwork fabulous. And with all this influence he's earned, Neil makes sure to use his talent to give back to the community too.
This is the original artwork. The original will be signed up here by Imagine Dragons, auctioned off at their year-end gala to raise 100% of the proceeds.
That's money that will go to the Tyler Robinson Foundation, a nonprofit started in part by Imagine Dragons to help families battling the costs of childhood cancer.
My guess is that Dan is going to bid on this and want to own the original drawing.
He also likes to support young artists and says when kids visit the gallery, he brings them over to the drawing board.
We do a piece of art together, or they bring me something they want me to see, and I say, would you mind if I put it on my kids' wall? Now you can go back to all your friends and say to them, you have a work of art in a gallery in Las Vegas.
When Neil was a kid himself, he says he saw entertainment as his ticket to a better life.
We grew up very, very poor. It was my way out of the projects to be funny. I got out because of my baseball skills, developed the artistic skills.
Decades later, he's making some pretty big deals as an artist. Take the piece purchased by the Raiders for Allegiant Stadium.
A piece called Raiders Through the Years. It's the greatest names in Raiders history. Well, to date now, it's the largest work of art in Allegiant Stadium. It's a feather in my cap. I'd like to say it's a feather in my hair, but obviously you're looking, there is no hair.
And more recently, Neil was a top 3 finalist in Park West Gallery's Made in Vegas competition. He didn't win the grand prize, but he still landed a contract.
You know, they are the premier art gallery in the world, and they want to represent me. How cool is that?
The Portnoys are in the process of expanding the gallery, and Neil's publicist, Ron Garrett, calls it a must-see attraction for locals and tourists alike.
It's worth visiting because you'll see things here that you can't see anywhere else. All original art, all from the mind of Neil.
Visiting his gallery is a way to see Las Vegas headliners like you've never seen them before.
I think currently to date I've illustrated about 300 of the entertainers here in Vegas in 5 years.
Learn more about Portnoy Gallery and Neil's work at ktnv.com/things to do. For How to Vegas, I'm Amy Abdelsayed.
We'll be back with more of this How to Vegas special after the break. I love coming up here at the end of my day. There is nothing as beautiful as a desert sunset. Just look at these colors and check out the view. That's why I know it is so important to have an accurate, reliable forecast so you and your family can get out and make the most of your day too. When it's not too windy, skies are clear, and the air quality is best. I'm tracking it all and I'll show you what to expect.
Real weather from real people. Danny Beckstrom, part of the 13 First Alert Weather Team, only on 13 Action News. Every morning brings something new your way. The Strip, back open for business. Moms and dads returning to the office. And lots of places you can now be together. Good Morning Las Vegas helps you keep track of it all with in-depth coverage of what you missed overnight. More live reports out of the studio and into your neighborhood. And positive stories that will make you smile. Good Morning Las Vegas. For morning people like you. Weekdays 4:30 to 7.
If you look around, you'll find them.
Stories about people doing extraordinary things right here in our city.
We've persevered because we've counted on each other and we've worked together.
People helping others. Pitching in when someone else is down and needs a hand getting back up.
Getting a stuffed animal that'll make them feel like they're loved by other people.
Inspirational stories that'll make you laugh and smile.
We call these stories Positively Las Vegas.
Only on 13 Action News and now streaming on your favorite device. 13 Action News' Zora Asbury.
If there's one thing that I know, it's guiding drivers through traffic. Now, I may be new to town, but I'll make sure you have the smoothest route ahead. Count on me every morning. I'm checking roads, keeping an eye on all those trouble spots, showing you the best way to get around quickly and safely. If you're driving to work, school, or just running errands, I got your back.
Zora Asbury's Problem Solver Traffic on Good Morning Las Vegas, weekdays starting at 4:30.
Welcome back to our How to Vegas special. For more on things to do around the valley, just visit ktnv.com/things to do. From aviation to creation, John Stolting is a Las Vegas artist fueled by curiosity. As a kid, he took things apart just to see how they worked, and as an adult, he's putting them back together, combining art, history, science, and mechanics to explore the how and why behind life's everyday mysteries.
John Stolting likes to make things. Well, most things.
Swords don't interest me at all. There's a lot of people who make swords. I like butter knives.
As an artist, he's inspired by something so many of us take for granted.
Stuff that people use to actually live on a daily basis. Those are the things that are more interesting to me.
Ordinary, everyday objects. Take this bar of tin he smelted.
Get the crank.
As John explains, that sound is called the cry of tin, and the noise comes from the crystalline structure of the metal.
Makes sort of that crunchy sound when you bend it, and the weird thing about it is if you let this sit for a day or two, those crystals will actually sort of re-knit and it'll do it again.
John is an art teacher at UNLV and the department's facilities manager.
So I basically just fix things.
Fixing things is something he's been doing all his life.
When I was a little kid, I was always just taking clocks and stuff apart, but as I got a little older and into high school, I think it was more about I couldn't afford to go buy a lawnmower, so I'd get one off the side of the road and fix it.
Messing with mechanics only fueled his curiosity.
I like to figure out what's behind the mystery. As a kid, I always figured I'd go into space or fly an airplane or something.
The first thing he did after high school was get an aviation degree.
I worked in aerospace and I built airplane parts and built little bits for satellites and stuff like that.
John uses science to help answer the how and why behind life's everyday little mysteries. But he says art helps with that too.
They're really a lot closer together than people tend to realize.
For as long as he's been tinkering, he's also been creating artwork.
Since I was a little kid sculpting, I really liked clay. Eventually the art won out.
John moved to Las Vegas from the Midwest to attend grad school, and he has a Master of Fine Arts from UNLV.
Las Vegas has kind of become white noise to me, like the Strip and stuff like that. I think the desert around influences my work a lot more.
Recently, he started showing his work again. He calls his creations part experimental archaeology.
Currently, I'm just doing lots of small metal castings and things that are kind of, I'd say, on the verge of jewelry.
In October, he was the featured artist at Available Space Art Projects with a show called Miscellaneous Debris.
It's my first show in 6 years.
It was 6 years ago when John became a dad.
It wasn't really an intentional hiatus, it just kind of happened, you know.
Now that she's a little older,
Faye, my daughter, she helps me a lot.
John likes to go hiking and find raw materials for his work, like different kinds of metals to smelt or interesting rocks to polish.
She gets her own sack and she'll get the reds or the greens or whatever for the day.
If you couldn't tell already, he's a history buff, which is part of what inspires him too.
I'm very interested in like the Bronze Age and the late Neolithic, and I think part of that is just because you could go out with a couple of rocks and create society, basically. I mean, the people were really making everything we've got here today out of just the natural, raw world and doing it by hand and doing it without electricity or the internet.
John creates historical reproductions with some of the materials he collects.
This is a fairly accurate reproduction of sort of a Middle Bronze Age razor. This is what they would pass for as a mirror in the Bronze Age, basically.
At the Barrack Museum, kids can touch and feel a bronze chisel while learning about Aztec history because John made one just for that. I asked him what he wants people to take away from his work, and at least for his Miscellaneous Debris show, John said it was pretty straightforward.
Everything here, it's just sort of like that hairpin is a hairpin, the knife is a knife. There really isn't any grand concept behind it. So it's really very much about the objects, I think.
Still, I couldn't help but notice every object had a story, including the tiny ecosystems on his desk.
That's super tiny. He's about the size of a grain of rice, if not smaller.
This one comes from a sample he collected while at the wetlands with his daughter.
I wanted her to see sort of the scale of the world and understand that there are lots of, little things. And so we went down to the wetland, of course, created those ecosystems, so I guess so she can see that she's really giant,
So much of what he makes is to better understand. Learn more about John's work at ktnv.com/things-to-do. For How To Vegas, I'm Amy Abdelsayed.
We hope you enjoyed this Las Vegas Art Scene special. You can find all of these stories and much more on our website at ktnv.com/art. If you're an artist who would like to share your work or know someone who you think should be featured, email us at events@ktnv.com.